Your midnight movie this week is Westworld, 1973, written and directed by the great Michael Crichton, and starring Yul Brynner, Richard Benjamin, and James Brolin, father of Josh. This film I used to rent religiously as a kid from the video store, and it's one of those watches that, because of again, I didn't know this at the time, but the combination of the score with the way it was shot. It's one of the most unsettling but effective, I guess, quasi-horror movies that I've ever seen. If you're not familiar with the premise, this is the movie that the TV series is based off of, where you basically have amusement parks of the future where androids that are virtually indistinguishable from human beings can be interacted with by guests that are paying a ton of money to be there, to do everything from have gunfights, sword fights, make love to, drink with, eat with, talk with, again, the androids of the park. Sounds pretty cool, right? It is, until things go haywire. Westworld is, the film, is, I think, a great sort of surface meditation on what could possibly go wrong with robotics and AI. It does not delve into the existential consciousness themes of the TV series, and I love the TV series too. The movie is just a straightforward sort of spooky sci-fi western, and it really is effective at blending all three of those genres. I think the coolest part of this movie is the fact that they got Yul Brynner, who, if you're any type of cinephile, knows played a heroic gunslinger in the film The Magnificent Seven, which was based on Akira Kurosawa's The Seventh Samurai. Someone had the fit of brilliance to cast Brynner again in the role of a gunslinger, only as an android gunslinger in this park. And I believe this film was maybe about 10 to 13 years after The Magnificent Seven. So it lends this sort of meta element to a science fiction film that is projecting what life could be like as robotics and AI develop. Grounding all of this are incredible performances by Richard Benjamin and James Brolin. I feel like most people are familiar with James Brolin, even if you only know him as Josh's father. He is sort of the cool cat of the two friends. He and Richard Benjamin's character are businessmen from Chicago that apparently are doing well enough to afford $1,000 a day to go to Delos. Within the Delos Park, they have access to Roman world, Westworld, and medieval world. And of course, these guys are big fans of Westerns, and who isn't? They decide, yeah, that's what we're going to do. And as they enter into the park, they arrive by hovercraft, which is pretty cool. You don't actually see the hovercraft itself flying across the desert. You get point of view perspective, which is a really brilliant approach on the part of director Crichton. It's effective. It seems real. It also saves you the headache of trying to do all of the modeling and special effects of projecting some hovercraft flying over a desert. Anyways, it's little things like that I love. They arrive at the park and, they choose, we're going to go to Westworld. We're gonna be some frontiersmen here. And they choose everything from their hats to their boots to their vests, their jeans, to their sidearms and their holsters. And it just looks like so much fun. Again, similar, if you know the TV series, they do that as well in the series. Benjamin and Brolin are super relatable. They do not feel like the larger-than-life leads of these films. Like I said, Brolin's character, John, he's more cool, more laid back. He's just going to have a good time. Whereas Benjamin's character, Peter, a little bit more anxious, a little bit more excited, asking Brolin all these questions, can you fan, in terms of how you fan with how that, in the Westerns, they would just sort of snap their hand across the back of the pistol to sort of fan, rapid fire the revolver at bad guys. And so it's question, he's can I kind of do this? Can I do that? And Brolin's like, yeah, man, you can do that, and you can do that, and you can do that. And it's sort of a fun, believable friendship that they're establishing. It isn't so that they're not sort of two-dimensional guys that we know are going to go to this amusement park and have trouble. They feel like real people, and they really give this time in terms of building their time at the park. They have time with the ladies, they have time with talking to the barkeeps, and eventually they have time talking to some gunslingers, or I should say a gunslinger, in the bar. And you sort of see how Benjamin's character builds up to talk back to Yul Brynner's gunslinger that's kind of talking smack at him. And Brolin's like, he's clearly calling you out. You need to respond to this. And there are several interactions between Richard Benjamin's character of Peter and android gunslinger played by Yul Brynner. And it's really just fun. There are parts of it, though, where you're watching it. And again, watched this a ton as a kid. I've watched it 2 or 3 times as of this recording. And I'm thinking things that didn't cross my mind as a kid, cross my mind as an adult is, if I was really there in this Westworld park and these androids really were indistinguishable from human beings, I might be a little worried that maybe I'm hurting a real person. That was something that just crossed my mind. I'm like, how do you know? Now, of course, they explain within the film that there are sensors within the pistols, so you can't draw on a person. You can only draw on androids. Guests can't harm other guests. Kind of cool. There does come a point, though, where we're following not just Brolin and Benjamin's character. There is a husband and wife that were sitting behind them in the hovercraft flying over. The husband is really intrigued sort of by the romance and idealism of medieval Europe, castles and knights and all of that. His wife, on the other hand, might be a bit unsatisfied in the marriage, and she can't wait to sink her teeth into Roman world. And the husband's a little insecure about that, but he kind of doesn't care. They're going to go and do their own thing. So there is kind of a back and forth between the A-plot of Brolin and Benjamin in Westworld and them having a good time, drinking too much, taking ladies, upstairs, shooting gunslingers. There is a character played by Dick Van Patten, which I'm sure nobody watching this under the age of 50 or 60 remembers. He was the father in a TV show that ran for a while called 8 is Enough. He's kind of a comedic relief in this movie. He ends up becoming a sheriff after he shoots the existing sheriff. It shows the interactivity within this park. It's really, really well done. And I would think it sort of explains why this movie did so well at the box office in 1973. On a budget of $1.2 million, it took in $10 million for, I believe it was MGM. So yeah, they were really coming back hard with films like Shaft's big score, and now Westworld. And it's just really believable, really fun. And again, you have a master in Michael Crichton, both writing and directing. I don't know that he would go on to both write and direct his own screenplay after this. I think this was it. But man, he knocked it out of the park. He swung for the fences and he did it. So again, we have Benjamin and Brolin's characters in the park having a good old time, maybe drinking too much, running around too much, chasing too many women. And then eventually, the gunslinger with whom Benjamin has sort of built up this vendetta with. Again, so they're building the narrative of, okay, clearly Benjamin has shot this gunslinger twice, so we're going to keep it going and sort of build this vendetta that both he and the gunslinger have. And we get to a point where one of the returns for Yul Brynner's gunslinger comes back and, something goes wrong. I'm not going to tell you exactly what happens. If you haven't seen it, I try to pride myself on doing as many non-spoiler reviews as I can. If I do deliver spoilers, I tell you. But something goes wrong, and our fellas, they've got to make some decisions, and they got to run real fast. And this is where I believe it's Fred Karlin who did the music and sound design for this film really kicks in. As I'm watching this most recent viewing of Westworld, I'm realizing that Westworld isn't just a really kick-ass blend of 3 genres, science fiction, horror, and westerns, this movie truly is the Proto-Terminator, and in many ways, Proto-Michael Myers film. I'm watching this most recent time with my nephew, and I'm like, wow, this plotting killer, cold killer in this movie feels so reminiscent. Again, it's an android. Obviously the parallels there to Terminator were just really acute, and I don't know why I didn't notice that before. But what I really noticed this time too was, wow, this feels very Michael Myers. And I have no idea the extent to which James Cameron and John Carpenter were influenced by this movie. But man, if they weren't, wild. This movie's definitely Proto-Terminator, definitely Proto-Michael Myers, and it really, it builds a sense of dread and real suspense. And I think that's truly what I like about a lot of horror movies or darker films or dark science fiction. I've never been a splatter gore guy at all. If it fits the narrative, it fits like what's going on in the movie, that's one thing. Hellraiser and Hellraiser 2, perfect examples, perfect films, beautiful bookends to each other. But that's part of the story, and it works. But gore and blood for the sake of gore and blood, I've never been into. You really need to pull me in with atmosphere and great cinematography and a good story. And that's what we get in Westworld. And by the time we are into like the last quarter of this movie, you don't blink. You really don't. It's so interesting to see this sort of this relentless pursuit that goes on in this movie. And it's also reminiscent a bit of There Will Be Blood, or not There Will Be Blood. What is that? No Country for Old Men. That's it. It's very No Country for Old Men in terms of the relentlessness of Brynner's Gunslinger. And it just keeps going and going and going, and it's so fun to watch. Also, it's fun to watch how the human guest characters, survivors, how they are able to either recognize the dangers and sort of use their cunning and reason to get out of danger, or to at least try to get out of danger for a period of time, to try to stay alive, and those that don't seem to be recognizing the reality of what's going on. And that's another interesting part of this too, of how different guests react to a clear malfunction going on in the park. You also have the, I guess another B plot going on with, you have the behind the scenes of the engineers of the park, making repairs to androids overnight, talking about, oh yeah, she seems to be glitching here, or this android, she rejected this guest's advances, or this one, we're upgrading this one to give him better infrared vision and improving his hearing. What could possibly go wrong, right? But casting Brynner as this, main antagonist baddie that he becomes is so brilliant. Again, because he is such a, if you're not familiar with the Magnificent Seven, this won't mean anything to you. Maybe watch the Magnificent Seven and then watch Westworld. I think it will hit much harder. But even if you don't, that sort of very intense looking man in black, his bald head, his really intense eyes, he's just a perfect, sinister presence in this movie. And I think it was brilliant that somebody had the foresight to take an iconic gunslinger from Hollywood Westerns that we all knew as this good guy, and in a very meta way, put him in a different film as this malevolent force. Absolutely brilliant. The plot also, while it does sort of unfold as you expect, it doesn't unfold. It doesn't follow what I think most audiences in 1973 or now would expect. It's a little bit more clever than that. Again, the pursuits and the attempts at escape and the chases and having to think your way out of danger, I really, really dig. I don't feel that we see as much of that in films where you have that. Even, I think you have that in the Scream films. You certainly have that in, a few of the Halloween films. But this film Westworld does it really beautifully. It's such a fun movie. It has me going back and watching old westerns and reading old western reprints of old western comics. Weird Western Tales by DC Comics. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Just, I don't know. It sparked a lot of more analog enjoyment for me. So I highly, highly recommend Westworld. If you have YouTube Premium, as I do, this and a ton of other really great movies. In fact, Westworld and The Magnificent Seven are both available on YouTube Premium for free if you're a member. So if you're not already, join. I absolutely love YouTube for this. There's just a dearth of great movies available. Older, maybe culture stuff, but also a lot of classic stuff too. But yeah, Westworld 1973. This really is, it's a returned, now perennial classic for me. This movie was so fun. I forgot bits and pieces of it. I kind of felt like I was 12 years old again, watching it, rediscovering it, now sharing it with friends and family. But yeah, check this movie out. You won't be sorry. But let me know am I right? Am I wrong? Is it dated? Is it not? I think it works. It's some of the first CG, first digital pixelated effects in any movie for the vision of the androids. So that's another one too, worth checking out. But yeah, guys, let me know what you think in the comments below. If you've stayed this long, please like, share, subscribe, and I'll see yous in the next one.